Hey guys, welcome back to this week's poll here on Comic Relief Cast, where every week we give you early reviews on the newest comics hitting shelves that week. I am your host, Jake.
And I'm Josh. Hey Jake, got a quick question for you.
I don't even care anymore.
Oh, I was just kind of curious on who your favorite Green Lantern was.
Oh, well, my...
What are we reading?
And with that, you guys have obviously clicked on the DC portion this week, where we will be covering Suicide Squad Black Files #1, The Dreaming issue 3, Batman issue 58, Green Arrow issue 46, Justice League issue 11, The Empty Man #1, and Green Lantern #1, the high-profile issue coming out this week from DC. But starting off with Suicide Squad Black Files by a number of writers and artists. Josh, how did you feel about this thing here?
It was long, it was boring.
Okay.
Right. I don't want to...
I could have made a sex joke there and I didn't.
Yeah, it was long and boring, like my sex life. Yeah, you would have went for that one.
Or more like short.
No,
though.
it felt like this book is not needed. It just seems like they just wanted to waste. The dialogue was not very good. The artwork at times was pretty decent, but you got two different stories. You got one that follows Katana,
which is horribly boring.
Yep. And then you got one where there is a war because they're trying to save magic, which sounds awfully familiar to another DC title right now.
Yeah, The Witching Hour, anybody?
Oh, yeah.
And also it's called Suicide Squad Black Files. It's one of 6. Sounds very much like X-Men Black, which was a 5-issue series, which you also had the Apocalypse story at the very end of all of them, which kind of made it 6 issues. Yeah. So this thing just feels like a cheap knockoff. The writing is god-awful. The art's, I mean, it's nothing bad. It's not terrible to look at or anything, but it's just horribly boring, and it feels like a chore to get through. And I hate to be saying this about this book because, like, I want something Suicide Squad related to be good. I really do. Like, the miscomings of the movie that came out, the series out that no one seems to care about, that's getting no reviews, barely anybody picks it up here in the shop. I wanted something Suicide Squad good to be out. That way I was like, I gotta see what all the buzz is about Suicide Squad. But honestly, it's just the novelty of villains who have to act as heroes, and there's just a lot of logical problems in this book too.
Yeah, it's just like the premise, the idea of Suicide Squad is really cool, and it's a really fun premise, but it just seems like it's never written well. No. It seems like it's becomes a cop out, a gimmick.
It's a novelty.
Yeah, a novelty. And this one definitely feels like a novelty. I mean, at times, it like some of the characters even look somewhat similar to the way that they looked like in the movie, and it's like, why are you even trying to kind of represent, or follow something that failed?
Or other characters look so much like a version of Marvel that's just like feels like a cheap knockoff, And,
yeah. Well, I mean, you even got a character in here that looks like Nightcrawler, but it's not even supposed to look like Nightcrawler.
No, it's Clarion the Witch Boy, and I don't remember him ever being blue. It really threw me off. But anyways, Josh, do you want to go ahead and unveil our rating system for this episode?
Floozle Flims is our rating scale, but I have a funny feeling that our rating is going to be the same. Do you want to say it at the same time?
No, go ahead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'll give it 1.
Oh, okay. I was going to give 1.3. 1.3 Floozle Flims.
I'm giving it 1 Floozle Flims.
Honestly,
I was the whole time I was reading it, I just was waiting for the end.
Yeah, $4.99 was not good. All right, moving on to The Dreaming, issue 3, which is in the Sandman universe. This one's by Simon Spurrier and Bilquist Evely. And this one's been following, it's like, to me, it's the main story out of Sandman because it's the one that takes place in the dreaming world. And that's kind of what I associate the Sandman with. But this one, it does spend a little bit of too much time in the beginning kind of establishing the character of Gallows, Judge Gallows, and then it's all about these other characters that we've been following. Mervyn, the Pumpkinhead, who kind of takes a back seat in this issue, which I wasn't too fond of, and Lucian becoming more of the main guy. But this is also, there's a lot of intrigue, and it's kind of setting up itself to be like this mystery whodunit, double cross kind of thing, and I don't know. I like it, but it does feel like there's a lot of fat that you could trim off of here to make it a little bit more streamlined and a little bit more interesting.
I completely agree. It's at times I feel like if you were someone who was, you only picked a select few books to read every week and you didn't want to be overdone with a lot of reading, this book does have a lot of words, which a lot of people like that. I mean, it's a lot of wording, it's a lot of storytelling, and it does seem like you could trim off some stuff in this. But with that being said, the artwork in this book is just amazing. The inker did a great job, and the colorist did a fantastic job on this book. The panel work is really fun, and it has a very basic kind of panel work flair at times, but then you have these like splash pages where it gets really cool and becomes like
it's grotesque and like otherworldly, and it's very fantastical.
Yeah, and I mean, so the artwork alone is it's really good.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a good looking book for sure. There are some good moments in here. Like it also seems to be kind of mirroring a little bit of like a corrupted government. Like it's like what happens when, like, anarchy ensues and the way people have to kind of gravitate towards a leader. Like that kind of thing starts to be happening here, which almost could give you a little bit of a Walking Dead type vibe. But I really enjoy this book, and what I enjoy the most is just how creative it feels. This is just something I never would have thought of doing, is making an entire world that operates within the dream world, but it has to operate kind of like our world does, in the sense that, like, there's the mundane, there's the fantastical, there's all, and all shades of that. So with issue 3, I'm going to go ahead and give it 2.9 Fluzelflems, because I did enjoy it, but it was not my favorite, and I think the biggest reason is because it moved away from Mervyn.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with you. I'm at 2.9 as well. It was good. It just felt, one, they moved away from Mervyn, which is the main reason why I like this book. Mm-hmm. But also, it felt a little too long.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Batman 58 by Tom King and Mikael Janin. And as you guys can see, it's got a great cover, but it's got an even better looking variant cover by Mattina. So, but this one, it's starting a new arc, it looks like, with Penguin as the villain. And
Tyrant Wing.
Yes, the Tyrant Wing. And it's interesting because it kind of opens up with Bane and what I assume is Thomas Wayne Batman in the background.
A lot of things that's been going bad with Batman throughout this Tom King, like the last few, or I would say it's actually the last 10 issues, seem to be run by Bane being the mastermind behind all of it.
Right, but having Thomas Wayne Batman in the background I thought was really weird.
Well, if you remember,
I couldn't tell it was a statue.
In Batman issue 50, the wedding issue.
The button stuff?
No, the wedding issue.
Oh.
Yeah, in that issue at the end, you find out that Bane is behind a bunch of this stuff, and Thomas Wayne, like the Thomas Wayne Batman, is standing back there. They still haven't announced if it actually is or who it is.
Okay. Well, anyway, so it's going on with, the Penguin, and he's mourning the death of Penny Cobblepot, and which I believe is his wife, right?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think so.
But I don't. Oh no, beloved daughter. It says right there, beloved daughter and wife.
We were way off.
She was also born in 1998, so I don't know really. It's probably his daughter. But it's basically him trying to get back at Batman. But there's always the twists and turns. And honestly, this would have been a really good book if Tom King basically didn't decide to plagiarize half the book, and half the book just be quotes from The Turtle and the Phoenix from William Shakespeare.
Yeah, the book does take a really good, it starts off really good, starts off really solid. I like Penguin. I like the idea of Penguin being somewhat of a mastermind behind something. And it starts off really nice. I like there's some dialogue exchange that happens kind of referencing Nightwing that I really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. But then it gets to that part, and the whole time I'm just like, when is that going to end? And it lasts for a good majority of the book of just him reciting William Shakespeare, and it really kind of throws even though it kind of fits with this whole bird and this
kind of
it kind of talks about a bird and all this shit, but it still kind of takes you a little out of place, like to the point where you just want to stop reading and you just want to look at the art.
Yeah,
because the art's telling you more of what's going on, and it lasts way too long.
Right. If it wasn't for Janin's art, I'll tell you what, man, I don't know how I'd feel about this book. But I did look up what the Turtle and the Phoenix was about, and to condense it down, it's basically the death of ideals, or the death of an ideal. And I get where that's coming from based on the twist towards the end of the book. I kind of understand what it's talking about, but good God, is it just a chore to read. It feels like, again, more pseudo-intellectual bullshit from Tom King, where he thinks this is smart, and to me, because it lasts so goddamn long, I'm honestly inclined to believe this just feels more like plagiarism. It feels like lazy writing because he's busy wanting to do other things. I know he's writing a couple other things right now too.
Heroes of Crisis.
It just feels very lazy. It feels like he doesn't want to get to the story. He's just trying to fill out the 22 pages that he has to fill out in order to sell the fucking book. And it really just does get annoying. And honestly, the thing that sucks is it sets up this book in the beginning where there's something that's going to be going on to a very beloved character that I'm honestly worried about. And I'm just going, holy shit, this is a good issue. I'm thinking Tom King's going to be, delivering one of his, rare good issues, and then half the book ends up being nothing but quotes from William Shakespeare, and it fucking lost me, and it pissed me off.
I'm okay with quotes from
for half
other
a book?
writers, but not for half a book. I understand that. I remember back in high school, an English teacher told me, when you're writing college essays and stuff, that you should, if you add a quote from another story, from a certain writer, it kind of gives it a nice little flair, which that's true. But a quote usually is only a couple of lines,
a sentence or two,
not almost the whole fucking story.
Short poem, yeah. Anyway, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and give this book a 2.3 Floozle Flems. It could have been a lot better had he just stuck with the story he was writing.
I'm actually at 2.75 Floozle Flems. I really do enjoy the cover, and the artwork is good, and I am still intrigued to read the next issue.
Yeah, all right. Well, moving on to Green Arrow issue number 46 by J and S Benson, and I think it's Jose Peralta. I can't remember Peralta's name, but it is German Peralta. Okay. Anyway, so this one is kind of not wrapping up, but it's continuing the story with the Citizen, who is going after the top 1% of people and putting them on basically a public trial, to public court of opinions on if they're guilty or not for some of the shit that they've done. And it feels very relevant today. And it honestly feels like this is something that could possibly happen with just the way things have been going in the country lately, with just how divided everything is. It seems like this is not too far outside the realm of possibility. So when I was reading it through that lens, I went, this is really an interesting story. What if something like this did happen? How would people honestly react? And this feels pretty true to how people would react, and I really like the book for that, and I really like that Green Arrow is kind of going back to his hippie tree-hugging roots, because I think that's what made him such an interesting character, bringing him back to kind of that Robin Hood homage that he was.
Yeah, I do love when they add the little dialogue, him saying fat cats and stuff like that. It does definitely take him back to his roots. I've been absolutely loving this run, and I do like the premise of this villain. This villain is a very cool villain, and there's not a whole lot of hype on it, and I don't know why, but I feel like there should be some hype on this villain, because Citizen is really cool, and
cool idea.
You can relate to this villain because you see this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
out
who
there
doesn't
now.
feel cheated somewhat by the top 1%?
Yeah, and I've just been really enjoying it. I'm going to be a little biased because I love Green Arrow, but I would say this is probably one of my favorite reads from DC this week.
Oh, absolutely. This was a great read, and again, I'm loving that Black Canary is still such a heavy presence in this book. I got to give it to him, man. This book, you're right. There should be more hype behind this ongoing series,
because you're hype on the ongoing series, on the villain.
But there's
on
46 issues, and this isn't a series that I hear a lot of people talking about, which I find extremely odd.
It just recently in the shop actually started picking up some actual
after a year and a half of me trying to push it on people, but. It's a great read, and this is something I would definitely pick up. And also, Citizen's identity is revealed in this book too, so I think that gives it a lot more strength in it. So I'm in my eyes, this is a 3.8 Floozle Flem book.
I'm actually at 4.
Okay.
4 Floozle Flem. Like I said, it's one of my favorite reads from DC this week. And the artwork's great, the story's great, the villain is great, all the characters, everything about this.
And you got a Malieve cover too.
Yeah, and a Malieve cover too to top it off. It's beautiful.
All right, and you read The Empty Man issue 1.
Yeah, written by Colin Bunn, and art is done by Jesus Hervas.
Jesus.
Jesus?
Hervas.
Yeah, okay, I didn't see the ovaries.
The ovaries? What?
The ovaries.
Fuck are you? Okay.
I had to do it. All right, so Empty Man is the premises of this book is that there is this disease that is affecting people, and it's people are getting diagnosed with it, and it's called Empty Man. And what it is, it's supposed to be more of like it kind of feels like a haunting. What happens is people end up becoming very vicious. They either start killing or they start killing themselves, and they say that they blame the Empty Man. And everybody in the news and media is making this seem like it is a disease of mental illness of some sort, but really it's actually seems like it's going to lead towards that this is more of like a haunting of some sort. It's very creepy. Colin Bunn is not my favorite Capes and Cows writer, but he is really good when it comes to writing horror thrillers based stuff in these indie departments. I do like this book. It was a good book. It was a good read. It definitely brings an eeriness to it, and it also kind of makes you think about some stuff. But I would have to give it an issue 2 to finally decide if I actually like this enough to pull it. I'm going to give it about 2.9 Floozle Flims.
All right. And I read Justice League issue 11, which is a Drowned Earth tie-in, or it's not really even a tie-in, it's just a continuation of Drowned Earth. This is basically following the issue 1 that came out last week. And I gotta say, even though I'm not a Snyder fan of recently, I did really enjoy this issue. I really enjoyed this book. There are some elements to it that I'm not a fan of. There are things going on that I'm not huge on, but the overall big concepts of this story, I'm really, really enjoying the ideas behind. My biggest issue with it is probably the fact that I don't like the idea that Aquaman's powers got transferred over to Black Manta. That feels a little ridiculous and out of the realm of believability even for me, and I'm suspending quite a bit of disbelief here. But, the idea that there are other gods from other worlds that patrol their oceans, or the gods of their own oceans, and they're coming here kind of for revenge because back in the day, Arian kind of, fucked them over. So now they're back, they're getting their vengeance on Aquaman fucking him over. He's got no powers now, so he's kind of trying to figure out how to deal with that. He's always had these powers. He's born with them. Now he's stripped of them. I like that idea. And him and Diana are trying to seek out Poseidon, which I'm a huge Greek mythology fan, so that kind of stuff just speaks to me. And Francis Manapul is actually doing a really good job. I've not been a fan of his variant covers or a lot of his covers lately, but he does a really good job in this book. And so the art is really doing a lot of the legwork for the storytelling, in my opinion. But I don't know what it is about Snyder wanting to have these weird neon tattoos on these characters anymore. They're doing it now with Aquaman. They did it with Jon Stewart with the ultraviolet ring, which seems to be something that just kind of dropped off as far as whatever that story was about. But I don't understand what that's all about. But I do like the big overall story behind this. And then, of course, I also still am not liking the idea that people get turned into fish monsters when they touch the ocean, but that's not really done in this book. So I gotta say, Drowned Earth, I'm really enjoying. I'm not enjoying it as much as The Witching Hour, but it's not too far off about how much I enjoyed that. So I'm gonna give this issue a 3.7 Floozle Flimes. I'm really enjoying it. All right, guys, and we are moving on to Green Lantern #1 by Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp. I've been heavily anticipating this book. How have you been feeling about this book?
I'm a Green Lantern fan. I'm not big enough to want to pull a bunch of stuff for Green Lantern. I was kind of excited to read this because it is a Green Lantern #1, and you're starting off with Hal, and I do at least like to give it a first issue.
Yeah. Well, I've been very excited.
I know you've been anticipating. Before the book even came out, you already spent, about $52 on covers?
4 different covers, yeah. 3 of them by Jim Chung, 1 by Francesco Mattina. I'm very excited about those books coming in. But we have the Liam Sharp and Frank Quitely's here in the shop, and even by the cover, you guys probably all seen it here before, but it's thrown up there on the screen for you. It's got a very 70s vibe. It's got a very cosmic vibe. It kind of reminds me of some Jim Starlin stuff or some why am I forgetting his name? Who did Thor? Walt Simonson. It's got a Walt Simonson feel, a little bit of a Kirby feel. I'm really liking that. I'm not exactly digging the pencils too much from Liam Sharp. I know the proportions look a bit off on Hal, but whatever. Anyway, this is an awesome little book. This is taking Hal and taking him back to the police precinct kind of feel, the beat cop who's kind of taking down your everyday muggers or dealing with your everyday street crimes and stuff like that, but on a cosmic level, on a level that a Green Lantern Space Force would be forced to deal with. And you don't even open with Hal Jordan. You open with a couple other lanterns that I'm not even familiar with, and
they're kind of new, and they kind of spread are broadening the idea of the different kind of lanterns.
Oh yeah.
Which, by the way, that was my favorite finger, you savage.
That is our secret code phrase this week for 20% off any book not on your pull list. Come on in, give us that code phrase, and get your discount. Yes, guys, they are introducing some new types of lanterns. I really dig this. Actually, there's a moment where Hal's talking with one of the Guardians. And they're talking about they have microbial Green Lanterns, ones that are so small you can't even see them. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
They even address actually the source wall breaking in this book, so it
Yep.
is in canon with the rest of the DC universe. So I'm really digging this. Book. But what I like about it, it's just taking Hal back to his roots. We talked a little bit about that with the Green Arrow, but it's taking Hal back to his roots. It's taking him to a time where he can't keep a job here on Earth. He's got all these duties out in space, and he can't keep a normal job here, and he's having trouble with that. He's crashing on couches. He's hitchhiking. He's living a glamorous life here on Earth, but he's a good space cop. That's what he's good at. That's what he does. So he doesn't really need his life on Earth too much, but he's also kind of persona non grata with the Guardians and stuff like that too. I'm really, really liking everything that Grant Morrison is setting up in this book.
I do. It's nice. It definitely have an old school 1970s Green Lantern feel back when Neil Adams was on it, even down to Liam Sharp's pencils. I'm not a huge fan of Liam Sharp's pencils. It's like what Jake said, the body proportions, but the background work, and then there is some panels in this where it's just like iconic, like you look and go, that is fucking Hal Jordan.
Oh yeah.
There's some panels
in here.
it,
yeah.
Yeah, and some of this stuff, like when it comes to creatures and stuff and cosmic backgrounds and stuff, it's very detailed. And the spaceships and stuff, it's very detailed, little tiny details in which adds to it, and definitely gives you a feeling of like the old school like Green Lantern title.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that we're going to be exploring a lot of space that we've never explored in the DC universe so far. We're going to be going to a lot of corners of space we've never seen. We're going to be dealing with a lot of new characters, a lot of new ideas. That seems to be what's being set up here, and I like that. I like that we're not retreading on a lot of the same ground we've done with Green Lantern. We've done a lot of the Sinestro Corps. We've done a lot with Sinestro. We've done a lot with the Red Lanterns and things like that. This seems like it's going to be very fresh, very new, but kind of in keeping with Hal's, with his roots of kind of where the character was first conjured up and established. I think that is going to be, hopefully, it's one of Grant Morrison's hits and not one of his misses, because he can be kind of wishy-washy like that. But
yeah.
What I'm reading here in this issue 1, as we were talking about in the Marvel one earlier today, there's not really that hook that gets you in this issue. Like we talked about with some miniseries, you want that hook, something that's going to just get you in, go, fuck yeah, I'm on board with this, other than the coming soon thing that's got me pretty interested.
That's my hook right there.
But as far as story goes, there's not a huge hook.
There's one hook towards the end, but I think that it's so vague and so like you don't understand it, like it's too mysterious to the point that you can't realize that it's
it doesn't hype you up as much as, because it does seem a bit obscure.
Because you got way too many questions instead of just a few questions.
Yeah, but again, I'm just glad that we're going to be getting some new characters, some new villains. Hopefully this is one of Green Lantern's best stories to date, something that people are going to want maybe action figures of, or characters that become a staple in the Green Lantern mythology from here on out. Who knows? But with this, I am excited. This issue 1 isn't, crazy over the top. Oh my God, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. But it is planting the seeds, setting up the ideas. Hopefully, it's executed well. But just as an issue 1, I'm going to try and be as objective as possible. I'm going to give this one a 3.85. Fluzoflems.
I'm at 3.5 Fluzoflems.
Okay. So I feel like I was pretty objective then, right? I wasn't letting my fandom get in the way.
I mean, when we were taking the pictures for a thumbnail, you were being a little, Granted, you looked like a guy who was like, oh man, I spent $52 already on this book. I'm hoping I'm going to make this book good. They're like, no, you're being very reasonable. That was one thing I was kind of curious on, was how you felt about it as a Green Lantern fan. Because me personally, I'm a Green Lantern fan, but not enough to constantly be pulling it and have a bunch of Green Lantern in my pool.
Buy 4 copies of one.
Buy 4 copies of the same issue before the actual issue comes out. But I mean, it was a decent read, and it's fun, mostly just because I feel like if you were a person who really was a fan of the 1970s Green Lantern, it seems like that's what Morrison is trying to go for. He's trying to go for an old school. I mean, even with the little thing, I was making jokes about it earlier today, but it says Intergalactic Lawman on it, and it's like, okay, well, that's who he is.
Cheesy, yeah.
Yeah, it's cheesy, but it's 1970s comic cheesy,
right.
So it fits with the rest of the way the story is told.
It feels like Morrison's actually kind of trying to move away from what Jeff Johns has established as Green Lantern. It's like he's not trying to dismiss it, but he's not going to try and keep going that route, or even what Robert Venditti lately did with Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps. it feels very much like its own thing, and it wants to do its own thing, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, see, my biggest thing with a lot of the Green Lantern titles was I felt like they were definitely going, especially mostly recently, that they were kind of going a little, taken away from Hal. That they were trying to introduce all these other Green Lanterns and make them just as important as Hal. And I don't want that. If I'm going to get a book, I want a Green Lantern book, I want Hal.
Right, and there is no Jon Stewart, no Kyle Rayner, no Guy Gardner, no Jessica Cruz, Simon Baz. None of those characters show up in this book. It doesn't mean that they're not going to at some point, but they don't in this book. And I'm honestly okay with a series that's just solely focused on Hal, because Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, was very much focused on the Earth Lanterns as a whole and a couple of the other Lanterns. It wasn't a Hal book. I would like just a Hal book as a Hal Jordan fan.
Yeah.
So, guys, I think that is all we've got for you this week here on DC. Let us know in the comments below if you've picked up any of these books, if you're looking forward to reading any of these books, if we've, persuaded you one way or the other to pick one up or not pick one up. Tell us why in the comments below. Hit that thumbs up button, share this with your friends, and of course, guys, as always, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're getting very close to that big 800 number, and we're looking forward to getting there, and we really thank you for listening. Take care.
Come Dunster.
Bum fights.